Vreeland.
Here.
President Walensky.
I'm here.
You have a quorum.
Am I the skin of our teeth? All righty. Exactly. All right. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? There will be, under reports of appointees to outside boards and commissions, addition there for me to make sure that Commissioner Tabb is still on the City Audit Committee.
Oops.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second?
Okay. Any discussion other than that piece that I added? We're okay with that? All right.
good.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of December 16th?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We're in full committee, folks. Yeah. Any changes needed? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Objections? Moving along to consent business. Would someone like to
Want to do the
move?
report of officers?
Oh, we got report of officers. I am so sorry.
You know,
Already
2 meetings in a
skipping
row,
things.
President Walensky.
Really?
I won't take it personally.
I'm glad to hear that, Superintendent Miller.
Thank you, President Walensky. Third time's the charm, though. Just some updates. For athletics, we have 29 youth hockey teams that began play on the 2nd. We have 170 youth basketball teams, and the wrestling season also began this week. Just some events that are happening. You might want to swing by when it's nice and chilly. We have the Shingle Creek Sledding Hill Extravaganza this Friday from 6:30 to 8:30. On Sunday, when it's going to be bitterly cold, is Powderhorn Family Day from 1 to 4. On Friday, the 15th of January, the Pearl Frost Festival will be from 6 to 9 p.m. The Lake Harriet Kite Festival, assuming it freezes over enough to have this, will be on Saturday, January 16th from 12 to 4. And the Logan Martin Luther King Day Skate will be on Monday, January 18th from 3 to 5 p.m. Regarding events we have to celebrate the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on Monday, January 18th at Powderhorn. Their event will be from 11 to 2. Central Gym will have an event from 3 to 4:30. And the event where we have a major celebration and give an award out on the evening of the 18th will be at MLK Park from 6:30 to 7:30. We have 3 skating rinks that are open for general skating. Lindale Farmstead, North Commons, and Bohannon. Bohannon and North Commons are also open for hockey. Assuming that we have consistent cold weather conditions, that we expect we'll have all of the rink opens by the end of next week. Keep your fingers crossed. What's also interesting about this year's weather is all of our lakes were finally frozen over by January 4th. The earliest frozen was November 30th, which was Birch Pond, and the latest to freeze were Harriet and Calhoun on January 4th. This is the third time in 52 years that Harriet and Calhoun did not completely freeze over till January. The last time that happened was 2011. Who says there isn't global warming? But it's really important that the public realizes that the ice conditions on our lakes is unstable and not safe. The thickness is really variable. In some cases it's less than an inch, in other cases it's up to 6 inches. So please, people, stay off the ice until it has an opportunity to get thick enough to be safe to be on. You need a good 4 inches of thickness for ice fishing, which is really the minimum we recommend before people get on. And finally, we have Calhoun Harriet Master Plan Community Advisory Committee meeting number 7 on Tuesday, January 12th at 6:30. It's at the Jones Harrison Residence at 3700 Cedar Lake Avenue. And that's all I have unless you have any questions for me.
Any questions for the superintendent?
I have a question. Do
Mr.
we
Misich.
ever indicate where it's safe to ice fish or what the ice depths are on various lakes? Or do we just assume that people will go out and
I think,
drill every couple inches to verify that they're in a safe location?
Dawn, do you know, Commissioner Musich asked a question about whether we notify people about when it's safe to ice fish or be on the lakes.
We do leave, thin ice signs up around some of our lakes year-round, so.
In the commissioners, in the 10 years I've been here, I believe our practice has been to let people know when things are open. We do post up closure signs. I've been told that there have been people out on Nokomis and other places. We do our best to put up signage and blockades to keep people off the ice. But our general philosophy is we tell people what the DNR ice safety guidelines are, but we do not ever say that there's ever safe ice. I mean, I don't mean to be vague, but it is, we follow DNR safety guidelines, and we try to make sure people know not to go out on it, but we don't really say that it's safe ever. And I'm going to look to Justin or Recreation if I'm wrong on that, but what we try to do really well is to make sure people know when things are open.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along to reports of appointees to outside boards, commissions, or committees. At this time, I'd like to reaffirm my appointment of Commissioner Tabb to serve on the City of Minneapolis Audit Committee. We don't know if her term was up or not, but we don't want any problems, so she's reappointed just in case.
I would move 7.1 and 7.2 from the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Sorry. Any discussion on either of these items? Commissioner Bourne?
I'd just like to, President Walensky, I'd just like to separate the two of them. I was not here for the closed session.
Okay. So on consent business, item 2016-101, a resolution amending professional service agreement number C-38812 with SRF Consulting Group, Inc., related to the Mississippi River East Bank Trail design and construction in the amount of $5,000 for a new contract of $226,500. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes. Item number 2016-102, a resolution approving the negotiated full, final, and complete settlement according to terms of the agreement as discussed in a closed session on January 6, 2016, for work injuries sustained while working for the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstentions? Thank you, Commissioner Bourne. All right. We move along to reports of standing committees, Administration and Finance. Commissioner Vreeland, can you jump in since
Sure.
Commissioner Tabb's not here?
I would move Resolution 2015-368. It's a resolution granting an easement to Fairview Health Services for storm sewer and retaining wall purposes at West River Parkway and Mississippi Gorge Regional Park.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify. Wait, this is an easement. Do we need a vote here with 6?
Yeah.
Mr. Rice? This is an easement to Fairview. Do we need these easement votes? Okay, let's just plan for the next 3, Ms. Ringgold, to take roll call votes. So,
Commissioner Olsen.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Forney.
Aye.
Commissioner Bourne.
Pass.
Vice President Vreeland.
Aye.
Who am I missing?
Commissioner Young's around the corner,
Yeah. President Walensky.
making her way.
aye.
The easement for Fairview.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Bourne.
Aye.
You have 7 ayes, 2 absent.
Thank you. Commissioner Vreeland, would you like to continue?
I would move Resolution 2015-369. It's a resolution accepting an easement from the University of Minnesota for parkway and sidewalk purposes at East River Parkway near Fulton Street Southeast in Mississippi Gorge Regional Park.
Second?
Thank you.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Olsen.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Forney.
Aye.
Commissioner Bourne.
Aye.
Vice President Vreeland.
Aye.
President Walensky.
No.
I'd move
Oh.
sorry.
You've got 6 ayes, 1 nay, 2 absent.
I would move Resolution 2015-370. It's a resolution granting an easement to Hennepin County for traffic signal and utility purposes at East River Parkway and Delaware Street Southeast in Mississippi Gorge Regional Park.
Second?
Commissioner Young. Yes. Commissioner Olsen.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Forney.
Aye.
Commissioner Bourne.
Pass.
Vice President Vreeland.
Aye.
President Walensky.
Pass.
Commissioner Bourne.
I'll abstain.
President Walensky.
Aye.
You have 6 ayes, 1 abstain, 2 absent.
Moving along to unfinished business, closing the gap, investing in our neighborhood parks, presentation and discussion. Superintendent Miller, just so you know, at 5:30, I'm going to interrupt you for open time. Thank you.
I can't see the clock.
Take it away.
Sure that you will remind me or let me know when we're at 5:30 if I'm in the middle of this. Thank you, President Walensky and Commissioners. As we discussed when I made the presentation on the reports that we had completed in October, I said that I would be coming back to the board based on the direction you gave me on recommendations to move forward. So this evening, I'm going to be presenting recommendations to you, and I'm looking forward to discussion with you so that on January 20th, I can bring forward an action item for you based on the recommendations that I bring to you tonight and your feedback to me. Based on the action that the board takes on January 20th, by February 1st, we will provide formal communication regarding the action you take on the 20th to the mayor and city council as well as the charter commission, since those are 2 of the 4 bodies that potentially could approve us moving forward with a ballot initiative. So tonight I'm going to be presenting 3 things to you. First is proposed ballot language. Second, programs and initiatives for the first 5 years, which is 5-year strategies for implementation, as well as strategies for long-range plans, and elements of an agreement with the city of Minneapolis to protect our current, a number of things that we currently have in place with the city. So let me read through this proposed ballot language. Shall the city of Minneapolis be authorized to levy additional property taxes in the estimated amount of $15 million per year for 20 years for the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board to maintain, repair, and improve neighborhood parks, including repairing and improving recreational facilities to provide increased opportunities for children to recreate and experience nature outdoors, provide at-risk youth with recreational opportunities, improve access to parks and recreational facilities for people with disabilities, increase park safety by improving security lighting, improve neighborhood parks in underserved areas of the city, and permanently protect endangered natural areas. By voting yes on this ballot question, you are voting for a property tax increase. The maximum annual amount of the increased tax levy as a percentage of tax capacity is 0.03857%. The amount that will be raised by the new referendum tax rate in 2018, the first year, is estimated to be $15 million. These funds shall not replace existing funding for the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. All expenditures shall be subject to full public disclosure. In terms of the estimated revenue and cost to property owners, what we have done is taken the 2016 local tax capacity, multiply that by the tax capacity rate, and then that gets the levy amount. So in 2016, local tax capacity is $402,140,867. You multiply that by the 0.03857, and you get the $15,510,573. And again, these are estimates based on 2016 numbers. And then based on that, the estimated cost to property owners based on a 2016 levy amount. Again, these are estimates. For a $100,000 home, it would be $27.67 per year. For a $190,000 home, an average of $65.53. For a $300,000 home, $111.78 per year. And for a $150,000 home, it would be $173.57. What's important to note here is that these are based on 2016 numbers. What I am proposing, if we do move forward with a referendum, that it is on the ballot in the November 2016 election, but that we do not begin collecting revenue until 2018 because we need time to ramp up. And so these are based on 2016 numbers on tax capacity. And assuming that the economy continues to do well, those numbers will most likely go up by the time we actually collect the first revenue in 2018. In terms of the plan itself, I will lay out for you an overall plan for 2018 to 2022, which is the first 5 years. There will not be specifics in the plan I'm sharing with you tonight. What we are working on from tonight is specifics of a plan that I will present to the board in April of 2016 that gets to very specific projects that we will work on. Again, this is a programs initiatives, the first 5 years, with strategies for long-range plans. The plan would be that we would have an ongoing 5-year implementation plan that will be updated annually, just like we do our CIP. So that as part of the budget process, we would have a section as part of the budget that would simply be focused on the referendum itself, and it would be a 5-year plan that we would lay out for the next 5 years, and then every year we would add another year when it gets to the budget process. So that will be part of the annual budget process with public reports through our financial reporting that we do quarterly, and then obviously we will provide an annual financial report to the board as well. This will also be reported in the superintendent's annual reports. In terms of the programs and initiatives for the first 5 years, it's broken up into 3 categories. The first category is maintain. We're proposing, based on the revenue that we have estimated, that over the first 5 years we would spend over $20 million on maintenance. And the maintenance categories that we've identified, you can see what our current service level, and with this funding, what our achieved service level would be in those areas of maintenance. One thing about maintenance that is different than the other 2 categories is that we can begin this work immediately in 2018, and the idea is that these would be sustainable practices for the life of the referendum. Through this practices, we would be implementing best practices for park and park asset maintenance, including environmentally sustainable practices. We'd be providing particular focus on maintenance of parks and park assets in underserved areas of the city. We would also, by doing this, improve the integrity and durability of our parks and our park assets because we would be on a regular maintenance schedule. And we would ensure that we would be protecting endangered natural areas in our neighborhood parks. The next category is rehabilitate. We're proposing that in the first 5 years that we would spend just over $14 million in this category in the first 5 years. And we have 3 major areas of rehabilitation: enhancing park safety, fixing it first, and addressing the backlog. As you all know, we are not just dealing with issues moving from this point forward. We're dealing with a backlog that goes back at least to 2000. And so one of the issues that we're looking at is I've proposed a 20-year referendum. It is my belief, the fact that by the time we get to 2018, we will almost have a 20-year backlog of work that we have to get caught up on. And so what we are proposing is that the first 5 years we spend a lot of money on rehabilitating on immediate needs that are immediate maintenance needs, that we need to repair and rehabilitate facilities and assets, because we're not going to be able to fix everything at once. And we've got to rehabilitate some of our assets to get us through to the next 10, 15, 20 years before we can actually get to the place of replacing those. So specifically on park safety, we're proposing that we would upgrade park lighting where necessary and appropriate, with particular focus, again, in underserved areas of the city, and that we would be implementing building security improvements through improved systems and universal locking systems, and again, with particular focus on underserved areas of the city. In the fixing it first category, we would be addressing immediate maintenance needs again with particular focus on parks and underserved areas of the city, such as failing infrastructure, critical failures, for projects that are otherwise unattached to capital investments that we will be making or that are less immediately sequenced. We would also be satisfying regulatory requirements that we have and accessibility for people with disabilities. We'd be implementing the ADA transition plan and updating to meet critical code needs and requirements that we have. And again, these would be in assets and parks where we will not be having immediate capital improvement projects going on. And finally, in that same category, we will be accelerating the resolution of life safety projects for buildings and parks. And in the last category of rehabilitation, it's about addressing the backlog. We would be trying to address backlog, maintenance backlog for buildings and sites, including recreation centers, again with particular focus on underserved areas of the city and incorporating environmental sustainability. Even if there are not critical failures that are present, but operations and programming would be enhanced by investments, we will be doing that in this area. We will be also upgrading systems for efficiency, environmental sustainability, and comfort, such as HVAC systems, plumbing, building envelope integrity. And we would be improving facilities for maintenance activities in ways that address operational efficiency, environmental sustainability, protection of our capital equipment, facility aesthetics, suitable working environment for our operations and maintenance staff. And the final category is invest. We're proposing that we would spend over $43 million in the first 5 years in this category in 3 major areas: realizing our approved plans, supporting programs, and building the future. So obviously in realizing approved plans, would we be implementing master plans that the board has already approved based on service area master plans, focusing on parks in underserved areas of the city, and on completed but not implemented plans for neighborhood parks. In the supporting programs category, we would be improving parks and facilities with particular focus on parks in underserved areas of the city and enhanced program delivery according to approved plans, such as Request, the ADA plan, equity, and others. And building for the future would be creating parks and facilities that address long-term needs of diverse park users. To show you the summary, again, this is based on the Congressional Budget Office inflation estimates through 2022. In each of the categories, you're seeing our estimates for investments in each category for that 5-year period of time, as well as the total per year and the total over 5 years for each category, and in total for the full 5 years in all 3 categories. The third piece is the elements of an agreement with the City of Minneapolis. The first area is holding harmless protections from losing current funding streams. First is property tax revenue. Currently in 2016, we have general fund revenues of just over $52 million and tree levy revenue of just under $2 million for 2016. My recommendation is that we retain our authority as provided in the city charter and state law to request annual maximum tax levy for the Park Board to the Board of Estimate and Taxation, with final annual maximum tax levy authority set by the BET, and then the Park Board's adoption of an annual levy within that maximum amount set by the BET. The second form of revenue we get is through LGA. Currently, we get over $9 million in LGA revenue. We have a current agreement with the city where we get 11.79% of the total LGA revenue that comes to Minneapolis. My recommendation, excuse me, is that we retain receipt of that agreement where we get 11.79% of the LGA revenue that comes to Minneapolis. The second area of elements of agreement would be to hold harmless protection from rising administrative fees and charges. We have 2 administration fees that we are charged by the city. The first is a general administrative fee. Our 2016 fee is over $1 million, and as you all know, there is no justification for that fee. My recommendation is that we retain the same fee for the future until a cost allocation method can be established and agreed to by both parties and implemented by the city. The second fee is a benefit administration fee. That fee in 2016 is just over $154,000. Both the city and the park board pay a same per employee amount with a total fee based on the number of benefited employees. And my recommendation is that we continue using that same methodology in the future. And two other categories. One is holding us harmless against capital project and the capital project approval processes. Currently, our project reviews go through the CLIC process, and my recommendation is that we retain the CLIC project review process with net debt bonding for park board projects at a minimum of $2.5 million annually that cannot be reduced by CLIC. And finally, that we protect the park board's ability to address future funding needs for unanticipated critical needs. And that my recommendation is that we incorporate language that protects the park board and allows for the park board to address future unanticipated critical needs, such as natural disasters, diseases, or acts of God. So the next steps, just as a reminder, is that tonight, based on my recommendations, I'd like to have a discussion with the board. Then on January 20th, I will have before you a resolution approving recommendations around each of these three areas: the ballot language, the implementation plan, and the elements of an agreement with the city for you to take action on. And that following your action, I would communicate with the mayor and city council and charter commission about what you would like to see happen. So what I'd like to do, Jennifer, the board secretary, will hand out to each of you a copy of the presentation as well as a one-pager that lays out the implementation plan. That is exactly what I walked you through, but you'll have it in front of you.
Okay. Since we're as close as we can be to 5:30 without being 5:30, I'm going to hold questions until after open time. And since the open time speakers I have signed up are here, I am going to first ask a quick question, then we will start. Is it Beth Pacunas? Is that how you say your name? Beth, are you out there? Yeah. Okay. Were you here to speak individually? I had heard you were here to support Mr. Fisher. Okay, so I will just thank you for coming and supporting him. So I have two speakers then signed up, Andre Fisher and Mark Andrew. And so, Mr. Fisher, if you'd like to come join us at the dais. I get all of these. Welcome. I know you've spoken here before, so with open time, please state your name and address for the record, and there'll be a timer up behind me.
My name is Andre Fisher, Executive Director of Twin Cities Mobile Jazz Project. I live in two places. I live in Minneapolis and in St. Paul. I'll explain that later. My main reason here tonight is to say thank you. First of all, I'd like to say hello to Ms. Walensky and Mr. Vreeland, and also Ms. Miller and the rest of the board. The main reason I'm here is to thank some people, mention a few things, and also to talk about your help in supporting Twin Cities Mobile Jazz has been successful as far as our organization is concerned, and also University of Minnesota that has the Youth Social Work Department in conjunction with us has made an after-school program after they came and observed us in the park with children. And also this year we've signed up quite a few children or either steered them towards music or educational programs which give them more exposures to a better future, to a better outcome. And we found that the majority of the students that we basically deal with are not necessarily deprived, but we have kind of a lost generation which need to be exposed regardless of what socioeconomic neighborhood they come from as far as the arts are concerned, because it's lacking quite a bit in school systems. But this evening I'm basically here to say thank you, not only for that truck and the driver and the support, everyone from Tom to Corky to Scott to Molly and all of the drivers who've been very helpful, but also all the park directors. All the people that we've come in contact with, we've had no problems at all other than weather. And we've been very successful with the families and the children. We use the performances to make a database that we go around and we talk to the parents and and those with children who are interested. And that's also why now we're starting on our third after-school program with the St. Paul school system, our third semester, and actually some of those students were able to come see us in certain parks, which was very helpful. It was like definitely marketing for us, for them to be able to come to a neighborhood park, to be able to hear whatever our program was. In front of you, you have the folders, hopefully I've handed out. And what you're going to see in most of the pictures are not only of after school, but also at the park. What you're going to find is smiling faces, and you can't pay Minneapolis people to smile unless they want to. And what it means is they're happy and that they bring their families there, and there's a reason why we're the #1 park system. And I'm taking advantage of that. And this evening, not only would I like to thank the board, but there are a few people here I'd also like to thank. And also, we're on the cusp of signing a new contract with the St. Paul St. Paul Public Housing Authority. Where on January 20th, we start an after-school program at Mount Airy Community Center in partnership with St. Paul Public Housing and Boys and Girls Club. We have a program that will be there on Mondays and Wednesdays. And also, we're back again at Creative Arts High School in St. Paul, and hopefully our goal is to wind up in Minneapolis school system as well. But Ms. Pacun is here, who's a representative tonight of the St. Paul Public Housing Authority, came in support, and we'd like to thank them. They did a lot of work and a lot of research to vet us, to make sure that we were a good match, and apparently we're doing okay in that area. Another gentleman here who represents the St. Paul Public School System is Mr. Chris Ederer, who's a special teacher on assignment, who's basically with the Office of College and Career Readiness. They are the people who put us into the schools in that particular system. We'd just like to say thank you for all those involved. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I'd actually like to hear more about what Jane was talking about. But we'd like to say thank you. We're so grateful for the support, and there's nowhere else we'd rather be than doing what we're doing and helping the kids. And it was also good to see President Walensky come to the park and hang out at Logan. We definitely had a good time. But with music, with social work, with technology, with 21st century skills, we think that we're making an impact. Now we're getting ready to go. Believe it or not, this is our 4th year. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I have to say, I do enjoy the concerts in the park. I'm a little bit of a jazz lover, thanks to my dad. Not everybody gets parents that are into those kind of things. This year, we were rained out at Logan, and I got to say, it's a lot nicer when we can be outside than in the gym. So I'm hoping for better weather this year. But thank you. This program is lovely. I love that we have the opportunity for kids to get out and hear a different sort of music that they're maybe not so used to.
Thank you. Thank you for the baritone horn as well.
All righty. Next, I have Mark Andrew. Good evening.
Madam Chair and members, thank you very much. I'm Mark Andrew, and I'm here to speak in support of the presentation that Superintendent Miller made a few minutes ago regarding the effort to improve the quality of our neighborhood parks in Minneapolis. I am so excited that this program is being developed and proposed to you that I actually agreed to be the chair of a citizens' effort to help pass the ballot initiative this November, hopefully to get approval for this program. I'd like to just spend a couple minutes, Madam Chair, if I could, to give you a perspective from not only a former elected person, but also as a private citizen on why I think this program is important. I actually believe it's beyond important. I think after having served 16 years in elected office and about 22 years in public service in our community, that the value, the intrinsic value of our neighborhood parks to the city really outstrips any other asset this community has. And yet, after watching a steady decline in the overall quality of our physical services and a deterioration in the ability of the park board to deliver programmatic services, I believe we're on the precipice of an irreversible decline of our city parks because largely of conditions and circumstances that are beyond the control of the Minneapolis Park Board. In other words, I don't think it's the fault of the park board. Going back a dozen or so years, the city of Minneapolis, in a budget crunch, helped precipitate the problem because they had to balance their own budget, and several $1 million were stripped away from the park budget. And those of us who were on the sidelines or in other offices watching this were expectant that that money was going to be restored. And it wasn't restored. And I was one of the former elected officials during that period of time who spoke up publicly about the danger of not delivering the full funding that the park board needed in its property tax levy to make the system work. And we're not pointing fingers at anybody because it was a different time. It was a budget crunch, and we know that the city was in desperate straits. And we also know that there are other circumstances that have caused the issues here relating to state support and federal support that we can talk about whenever you feel like it. The reality, however, is that we're on the verge of sliding into a decline of our park system that's going to be nearly impossible to recover from. 13 or 14 years of funding shortfalls to do maintenance and operations and address the capital needs of our parks is not acceptable. And so I stand up here today as a citizen saying that if you take positive action and support this ballot initiative, we will organize a citizens' effort to give you all of the support you need to bring this ballot initiative into reality. This program should not be just a little bit more of spit and polish on the crown jewel of our city, that being our neighborhood parks. But rather, it ought to be able to help finance the capital needs, get us caught up on deferred maintenance, which was shocking when I went through this with Superintendent Miller a number of months ago. I was shocked. I knew it was bad. It's worse than I thought it was. And we need to have this ballot initiative adopted by the board. We need to bring it to the public. I believe the public will support it. The public values our parks almost more than any other city asset, and I think we owe it to the public to stand up and make our case. And our citizens organization will be at the ready to support this ballot initiative if it is adopted by the park board. So just to finish up, Madam Chair and members, I want to thank you for doing this. You guys have been working on this for 2 years, and there's already been a huge amount of work on this trying to address the issue. It's showtime, it's decision time, and I will give you every assurance that there will be a robust public effort to support this ballot initiative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Was there anyone else who had wished to speak at open time but had forgotten to sign up at the sign-up sheets in the hall? Seeing no hands flailing in the air, I'm going to assume no one else is interested, and so open time is completed. Superintendent Miller, are you ready to accept some questions?
Absolutely.
All right. We'll start with Commissioner Olsen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this and the report that was given tonight. I want to thank Mr. Andrew for all of his hard work, past and present, on many different things throughout the city and Hennepin County. I guess I've got one concern or one cautionary note for the board on this. As I look at the estimated cost to property owners based on 2016 to cover this, it's not a large amount. But the thing that really concerns me is the unknowns, the variables that are out there. You've certainly addressed trying to get agreement with the city in regards to administrative fees, things of that nature. The CLIck money, the $2.5 million that we get from CLIck. The one thing that is out of the city's control is local government aid, and that's a huge number. My fear is that if we go forward with this and we're successful, at some time during that 20-year period, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's certainly always a target at the Capitol that local government aid is a favorite topic for one party to target and try and solve problems on the backs of reducing local government aid to the cities that receive it. I think that's a very strong possibility that that number is going to shrink dramatically, might even go away at some point. If that occurs, we won't be able to deliver the promises for those 20 years because we're going to have a huge gap that we can't cover. My suggestion to this board, to the staff, is to look at what it would cost in the same format to include the local government aid. Let the city keep the $9 million. They don't have to raise that $9 million in property taxes, so it offsets. But I think it puts the city in a better position to defend the need for local government aid because they're using it strictly for fire and police. I think it puts us in a much better, stronger position to deliver the promises that are being made with this referendum so that we can fulfill them. I recall another referendum done by a body that fell short on the promises. That body is no longer around. So just the quick math, the numbers change, and it, like I say, it's just quick math and an estimate, but the $27.69 goes to $46, the $65.53 goes to $108, the $111 goes to $182, and the $173 goes to $278, and that's just quick math. It's I'm sure it's probably different, but I really think that's something that this board should take into consideration, and I would love to see what that number is, that 0.03857, what that changes to and what the actual numbers change to at the next meeting when we're discussing this again. Thank you. That's all I have.
Commissioner Bourne.
Thank you, President Walensky. One of the first questions I have is with the amount that we're looking at, the $14–15 million a year, if a referendum passes, that puts us close to being able to address the capital shortcomings we have every year during the life of the referendum, based on our best estimates now. Over a 20-year life, when we start to get to the end of that referendum, there are things that we will have then done 15, 20 years ago that are starting to have capital needs again. What happens at the end of that 20 years when all of a sudden we're facing another $15 million a year deficit and taking care of our capital needs? And are we just setting up future park boards for similar problems that we're trying to deal with today? How is this sustainable?
Commissioner Bourne and President Walensky, very good question. One of the questions or one of the alternatives is to do this in perpetuity, which would mean that the revenue would be ongoing and would not have to go back to the voters again. My experience and my belief is that it is better that we do this with the idea that future boards would go out for a referendum in 19 or 20 years and ask for that. And I think that my belief is that at that point you could ask for it, and obviously none of us will be here, I don't think. Maybe. Annie, will you still be here in 20 years? But that by demonstrating our ability to deliver on what we said we would deliver and what we promised we were going to do, that the citizenry would be at that point in time willing, I would hope, to approve something in perpetuity. And I think that, and so my recommendation, yes, this does not solve the problem for the rest of the life of the board, but it gets us significantly in a position where we have the revenue stream we need, and that we also then are able to demonstrate our ability to spend the resources in the way that we have told the community we would.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just much more interested in sustainable solutions.
Right.
If every meeting we're at, I feel like you're bringing forward an issue to us that we are correcting a 20-year-old mistake of a previous board. So I guess I don't want to do that to my successors if there's a better path. And looking at this, when you have your recommendations for agreements with the city, it looks like we're asking for $15 million a year. There's $1 million a year city admin fee that could grow over time to more than that. There's $10 million a year in LGA. I mean, a worst case scenario, agreeing with Commissioner Olson, if the city doesn't agree with these recommendations, we could find ourselves losing almost the same amount of money as what we're levying. Have you made these recommendations to the city yet?
Yes, I have.
And what are folks' perspectives on that? Are they making any commitments to say, we agree not to raise your admin fee by $1 million if the referendum passes? Are they making any long-term commitments to us in these conversations?
What I can tell you, Commissioner Bourne, is that every conversation we have had, President Walensky and I have had with every elected official at the city, the county, our state representatives, we have made it clear that this is not to replace existing funding. In fact, we have language in the ballot that speaks to that, and that we are very clear with what we would need in an agreement with the city. And we're not just talking about a handshake or verbal agreement. It would be an agreement in writing. Mm-hmm. Probably through ordinance would be my recommendation rather than a resolution that makes those commitments. The other thing is that it's important to know, and I'm going to go back to the ballot language. The ballot language, the second paragraph, talks about that the maximum annual amount of the increased levy is a percentage of tax capacity, the 0.03857. It is not a flat dollar amount. So as the tax capacity of the city fluctuates, in most cases it will grow. There will be years it won't. We all know. But that amount of revenue will go up and will fluctuate based on the tax capacity of the city. And as the city grows, so will the revenue that is generated, because it's a percent of the total, not a flat dollar amount.
Right. And effectively, the buying power would stay based on the closing the gap presentations that
Correct.
You've made. I mean,
Correct.
We're talking about the buying power of $15 million a year in today's dollars.
Right,
Yes,
and the
I
idea
understand
is that buying power 20 years from today is where it is today, but it's
Correct.
increased based on.
So it'll be $140 million in 19 years.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So when was the looking at levies, because when we set a levy, then that is our base levy every year, and we do an increase from that. So so that base levy then becomes effectively sustainable every year, because that's our base moving forward for the next year.
Commissioner Bourne, which levy are you talking about?
I'm talking about the annual levy.
The property tax levy.
The property tax levy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, again, my recommendation on the property tax levy is that it doesn't change this board's ability to request.
I understand. That's
Right.
not quite the.
Okay, so I don't understand what the question is.
I haven't finished my question
Okay.
yet. So this year our levy, I think, is around $54 million. And so when we start our budgeting process for next year, we are starting with a base of $54 million. When we go to the Board of Estimate and Taxation, we say we want an increase on that, and whatever increase or decrease we're given, then that is the base for next year, and then that is the base for the year after. So that my question is, and historically this board, in my time on this board, the levies that we have passed, when you average them out, have been a little less than the rate of inflation. So this board is actively funding decreases in our ability to take care of our parks. Do you know when the last time the Board of Estimate and Taxation or the City Council rejected a formal request from the Park Board to for a maximum levy amount greater than 5%?
Commissioner Bourne, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm sorry.
Okay. Has it been during your tenure as superintendent?
No, it has not.
Okay. Do you know when the last time any member of this board or previous boards that you've worked with have ever put forward a motion on the floor for a levy higher than 5% to then go as a request to the Board of Estimate and Taxation?
Commissioner Bourne, again, I don't know prior to my time, and again, as I answered, that has not happened since I've been here.
So what's challenging to me, and I think those are all of my questions. What's challenging to me with this is that, if we were a little bit more upfront and doing this in the light of day, I'd be the first person getting in line to support this. And right now I have some concerns, and my biggest concern is that it's not sustainable, and it's a little bit of a cheerleading session, which if we have overwhelming support from the community saying the community wants to pay for our parks. And this board has the authority to levy the dollars to pay for our parks. And for the 5 years that I've been on the board, we have refused to even put forward a request needed to fund our parks. And we've touted and bragged about 0% levy increases in the past. And we've not even made a request. Every conversation that I've had with elected officials have said that they are very interested in hearing numbers that would support the parks through the mechanisms that we have, through sending a request to the Board of Estimate and Taxation, having the Board of Estimate and Taxation vote on that levy request, and having the city affirm that request as we do every year. And it seems to me that if we were to look at getting the buying power of $15 million over the next 20 years in perpetuity, would really require a levy increase every year for the next 4 to 6 years of around a 9.5% levy increase, which historically the city many years has had an 8% increase when we've had a 4. So it's challenging to me to support this when we haven't even asked. And
Superintendent Miller, I'm going to jump in.
No,
I'm
making a comment, and I still have the floor.
I understand that, but the comment that you're making is that we have never asked. The problem is you do not seem to understand that we can ask for a lot more, and in the past the Park Board has asked for more, and the person who sets the budget for the city that it's all discussed on is the mayor of the city. And when the mayor presents a budget that says, I'm going to have the city increase by 8%, I'm only allowing the Park Board to go for 4, we ask for the maximum, which is set by the mayor at 4. We can ask for more, but again, we are one vote on the Board of Estimate and Taxation, and that is where those levies are set. Again, I've been in discussions in the past couple of years with the current mayor over our percentages. We have gone and asked for the dollars we want. We have been very fortunate that she's included those dollars in. I can tell you that those negotiations did not necessarily start and end at the same number, just so you know. So it's not that anyone is saying the Park Board isn't asking. We can ask for more. We can have a big, giant public fight, but the fact of the matter is we are, the way the budget is set up through the City of Minneapolis, we go through the Board of Estimate and Taxation, which has 2 citizen members, us, and then 3 people from the city, the mayor, the Ways and Means Chair, and the Council Chair. We do not have a majority on that board. We can ask for what we want, but that doesn't necessarily mean we will get it.
May I have the floor back?
Yes, you may.
The challenge that and the problem that I have with that is that, yes, we can have conversations in back rooms, but everybody supports our parks. And if there was a motion on the floor fund us at the level that we need, and all of a sudden it was we've said this over and over again, and we're positioning this referendum to be just that, who is going to publicly come out against parks. And I think if we put a motion on the floor for a 9.5% levy increase for this year, do it the next year, and at any time somebody comes out and votes no for that through their charter position to office, then I think that's the time to go out for a referendum, because we have overwhelming support, and I think the community knows that we have overwhelming support. It's to say that we've had these conversations without putting any votes forward it's the epitome of political cowardice. I mean, we are abdicating the responsibilities of our office, and if we did put forward a number that would support us, and then somebody said no publicly, I'd be the first one in line to support this. I mean, right now, the only elected official that I have had point blank tell me that she would not support a levy increase for the parks through the levy process has been Board of Estimate member Becker. And she has told me that she would be the last vote to support a levy increase, but would not be the first. And we need some first votes. And so then I find, I just find this kind of a bad and messy process. I'd like to pretend that we're making the decision here and that the decision hasn't already been made. I'd like to pretend that. So I have some concerns. If there is a referendum put forward and that is the only way my colleagues will vote to support our parks, I won't oppose that. I just wish we would do this in a sustainable way. If we do this through a series of levy increases, we are not kicking the can down the road and causing problems for future park boards like previous park boards have caused for us. We've spent a lot of public dollars on effectively a political campaign to date, and I would just like us to have this conversation publicly. And if we're willing to support this, why are we not willing to at least carry out the responsibilities of our offices and get a levy passed that is then sustainable for future boards.
Commissioner Musich.
Thank you very much, President Walensky. I find the proposal put forward by my colleague from the 6th District very surprising, considering his votes against our levy my first year and our budget in this most recent year. I'm sure that it was probably just trying to make a point rather than an actual argument to move forward with that sort of proposal, but I am pleased to see that we are looking to the people of the city to make a decision about whether or not they want to be taxed at a higher rate to support our park system. So thank you for all the time and effort that you've put into the presentation and ensuring that the language is relatively straightforward. We had talked previously about making sure that this is inflation indexed, and I assume that's what we mean by the language around the tax capacity of the city.
That's exactly right. So just as while LGA has been variable, we have a percent of the total. So as the total tax capacity of the city grows, our percentage stays the same, but the actual dollar amount we will receive will grow. Okay. If we face another recession and the tax capacity declines, we will also see a decline, but it will be at the same percentage rate as any increase or what we currently would get, what we would get if this were to move forward.
Okay. And we were talking about the rollout plan for this, and you indicated that we would be focusing on a couple of strategic areas and ensuring that we're meeting the needs of the most high priority things first, and we're focusing also on underserved areas as we have been doing with our current CIP.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Would we be incorporating the capital improvement component of this in the CIP process that we currently utilize?
Yes, we would.
Okay.
We
so
would.
We would have the same opportunities to
Absolutely.
ask for things to be moved sooner if we felt like they were a higher priority than others.
Absolutely. And again, what I've presented to you this evening is the framework of the three categories of maintain, rehabilitate, and invest. But in April, we will come with very specific work that we would be proposing that would be done. Obviously, the maintenance area is pretty well spelled out,
Yep.
but for rehabilitate and invest, so that you would see specifically what we're recommending for the first 5 years in those two categories.
Okay. And then we also talked about, or you talked about, life safety projects. What does that entail exactly? Like, what would be identified as a life safety project?
You know, we have a number of our facilities and that were built at a time that the code requirements are different than they are today. So it's ensuring that we resolve those issues so that our facilities are safe. I don't know specifically, Michael, if you want to talk. I don't know if you can talk specifically, or Justin.
Example, we have a recreation center at Longfellow that has a 9-foot section of its main roof structure that has completely rotted, and we had to put in support beams into their jacks the other week just to keep it up. So again, we're talking about things like this, but actually doing more substantive repairs to keep those facilities up and running.
Okay, so it's taking care of things that would otherwise require a building or a structure or a playground or a pool to have to be closed because
Absolutely.
it's in a condemnable state.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification on that. I had one more question, and now I don't know where I wrote it. So I guess I'm good for now.
Well, if you think of it, turn your light back on.
Okay, I can do that. I'm really excited that we're getting to a point where we can actually move forward with making some progress on this. It's been really hard to talk to my constituents about the state of the system and try to explain that that we just can't pay for it without something like this. So I'm really glad to see we're having this talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Musich. Commissioner Olson again.
Oh, no, I'm on yet, and I'll wait till Commissioner Bourne gets back in to start throwing rocks back his way. So,
Okay, then we'll skip to Commissioner Young.
Actually, Commissioner Forney is before me.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't see her light go on. I apologize. Commissioner Forney, why don't you go next?
Thank you, President Walensky. I, too, I'm just so excited that we're at this point, and I need to thank staff for just the amazing effort of giving us such marvelous data to document that this is so necessary. And on that accord, I wanted to point out that Assistant Superintendent Ringel indicated that when she was in Adelaide, Australia, was a part of a system that inventoried absolutely everything, what bar-coded benches and basketball hoops and lawnmowers, et cetera. And I would really, really encourage us to put in systems like this so that 20 years from now, we have it once again all documented, that we know, have a running inventory of, where are we, where are our critical needs and everything. So, we can't just stop here. It needs to be just an ongoing effort. And that's why I think that we are positioned so beautifully to do this, thanks to these efforts. I also want to thank the citizens for standing up and ready to move this forward. It really is a compliment to all of us, that we do have this marvelous system. Anyway, so enough accolades. It is my understanding that ballot initiative is one of the routes. Charter Commission is another route. Are there others, and are we also planning on moving forward on those other methodologies?
Commissioner Forney, there are actually 4 ways in which we can get a ballot initiative on the ballot. One is through the City Council, majority vote of City Council to approve ballot language to go on the ballot. Second is the Charter Commission. Third method is through the state legislature. And the fourth method is a citizen petition. President Walensky and I, over the last 3 months, we spend a lot of time together We have been meeting with, we've probably had 50 meetings and we'll continue to have more. And so part of the intent of those meetings is to gauge City Council's appetite for putting this on the ballot. Our first priority would be to have the City Council put it on, since they're our closest partner. And we're also looking at the Charter Commission. On the 27th of January, we have our legislative breakfast, and it is actually on the agenda of our legislative breakfast to have this conversation as well, which President Walensky and I have had with all of our representatives to find out whether they would be interested in going through the legislative route. You know, so I think those are our first avenues, and I think then if that doesn't work, my presumption is that the citizen group would enter in through a petition process if we were unsuccessful on the other two methods.
And so there are some time specifics for each one of these things. Is this something that, you know, we possibly can have this roadmap of how it is?
Absolutely. I can, on the 20th, I will provide the board the schedule for all of those different avenues.
Marvelous. And I guess my feeling is that I think we should pursue all as actively as we can. I just think it's very important for all of those parties, you know, to be aware of our needs, and it will benefit us. So, thank you.
You're welcome. President Walensky.
Go ahead.
Thank you, President Walensky. Commissioner Forney, to your first comment about a management system of our assets, if you'll remember, as part of the budget process, the board has approved us funding. We are in the very beginning stages of actually identifying an asset management system. Our expectation is that this year we will go out to bid so that we can actually have a robust asset management system that not only will function for day-to-day maintenance, but also rehabilitation as well as capital, so that things like having all of our assets barcoded would be easy, and our staff being out in the field, and when they do work on an asset, actually putting that into a system. It's exactly what we're trying to do.
Send more people to Adelaide and other places.
Thank you. Moving along, Commissioner Young.
Thank you, President Willis. First of all, my apologies. I have some kind of allergy, something that's happening. So sorry for all the Kleenex I'm using. I want to thank you for all this information. It's more than we've ever had before. I can recall 2 referendums that we've done in my years, and I guess I'm greatly offended, and it's not the first time, by Commissioner Bourne's issues around past commissioners kind of leaving everybody in the lurch as you move forward, and what kind of sustainable practices are we doing in this for 20 years ahead of our time. And I don't think there's any great plan that I'm going to be here in 20 years, so but probably not anybody else that's up here either, maybe. But I don't think we can be judging a proposal like this based on that 20 years ahead. I think we have to give it our best shot, and our best shot starts with this first 5 years. I think Commissioner Olson has a very valid point, because we have gone round and around and around how many millions of times, Attorney Rice, about LGA. Every year, it's a struggle. All of this is a struggle. And I think that Mr. Andrew, when he spoke, talked about that things were different. Different public officials, different elected officials. It changes all the time, which means we can't predict what's going to happen in 20 years. We can't predict basically what's going to happen in 5 to 10 years, but we can try. And I just think this is a really good effort. I think it's great that we have citizens that are ready to go. I know that President Walensky has been working very hard on the visiting everybody, and they've, as somebody said, we've already put 2 years into this, trying to prepare that, we're really doing the legitimate thing, and having this kind of detail to show our citizens, for starters, I think is really valuable and good. And I do want to congratulate you that we've gotten this far. And I think we just need to keep going. We can't predict. I don't know what sustainable practices means in 20 years, because who knows? With climate change going the way it is, we're having our first Arctic blast next week. They say it's going to be the only one we have this winter. That's real different. So what's going to be happening on this planet in 20 years? We don't know either. So thank you very much for your work, and I think we just proceed. I think you're right, Commissioner Forney. We look at all the avenues as possible, and we keep moving forward. And I think the superintendent is taking us down the right road.
Thank you. Commissioner Breland.
No, you haven't gone yet, so please.
So I've been working on these issues since before I was a park board commissioner. So these issues have been important and very challenging, and I'm completely mystified by the 6th District Commissioner's view and words about this process. This is not something that would be sustainable with an annual levy. Again, having watched more than a decade of truth and taxation meetings and the kind of dynamic that goes into the city process, this is really something with the parameters we have of net debt bonding, annual budget. We've been talking about a referendum for a decade, but you can't just go out with a referendum without doing a case study. I mean, when you go out for a grant, you have to really have the right information, so that if you're going to ask people for a significant change in a taxing authority, it really needs to be well researched, well thought out, and well presented. And this was not something that could be done on an annual basis in terms of an annual budget. This is something that needed to be developed over time. I'm sorry it didn't happen sooner. We've been working on it. And it really wasn't until this year, and at the superintendent's leadership, that we said we've gotten to such a point in our history that if we don't address this in a significant and important way, the park board will change, and not in a good way. So this is an important thing. I appreciate citizen support. I think this is all headed in the right direction. The LGA one we'll have to talk about, because we'd have to replace the $9 million. For median household, this is 20 cents a day. For the 40,000, it's 50 cents a day. But it's real money. This is going to affect people. And I think we have support. But I think it's so important that we ask as many people as possible what they think about this, and whether this is the direction that the city wants to take. It really is up to the city and its voters to decide, okay, we don't want to be the #1 park system. We want to be number 10. We want to close these buildings. We want to, we can't afford this anymore. Or is this really essential to what makes the city? And I think this is the right period in history, the right time. I think we're doing it in the right way. I think we put a lot of effort and staff time in trying to talk to as many people as possible about not a foregone conclusion of we're going to go out for a referendum, but here's the problem, what's the solution? And for me, the solution is the referendum. And I mean, to be told that this is political cowardice really bothers me, because if you're going to speak against the referendum, you should speak against the referendum. There will be folks that don't want to support it because they don't want to pay for it. There's folks that make a lot of money, and this will make a big difference in their tax bill. And if you represent those people and you don't want to support it, that's okay. But to say that this is a technical problem and that we didn't do it in the right way, and go back through history and say, well, we could have done this, we could have done this, we could have done this, none of that matters. In my civil rights work, you keep your eye on the prize. You don't get sidelined by this didn't fit this year, this way, that happened. What's the problem now, and how do we fix it? And saying that this could be fixed by an annual levy is foolish, untrue, and would not happen. The only way that we can address this is as a large, systematic change for the city of Minneapolis to develop the investment of the parks that didn't occur since 2001. And we can go back and blame specific individuals, processes, systems, structures, taxing authority, bonding. None of that matters. Today, the question is, what do we do and how do we do it? Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson for the second time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to first touch back on the statement I made earlier. And you nailed it, Superintendent Miller. This would be a 20-year deal. And in 20 years, there's going to have to be a decision on whether or not to go back out and ask again. And I can tell you right now, it's going to be, yep, we got to go back and ask to have it renewed, because if we don't, we've got this huge shortfall in our budget. I think that makes it even more important that we account for the LGA. Because if we fail to deliver the promises, when the board goes out 20 years from now to ask just to have what we were getting to keep the system going, people can say, you didn't deliver the promises you made last time. Why should we give you more now? It's such a unpredictable spot. And LGA is very, very volatile, and it does go down, and lobbyist Rice can attest to that. It doesn't get fully funded over at the Capitol, and it kind of goes up and down. Now, it's been pretty good the last several years, and I certainly want to thank the governor and the folks at the Capitol for that. But boy, there's some years where some unallotments happened and things like that, and it's pretty scary because you scramble. Then I want to respond to misleading statements. Once again, no surprise that a certain commissioner makes misleading statements.
Point of order, Madam President. Point of order, Madam President.
If this is going to be a point of order which says, is this out of line, and there's a reason for it to be out of line, then a point of order will be accepted. But if this is just going to be arguing back, then that's not a point of order. I just want to make it clear.
I'm questioning if the second district commissioner is making personal attacks or personal accusations, which are out of order under my understanding of Robert's rules, and not debating the positions put forth by his or her colleagues.
I haven't named any commissioner.
I will just say at this time, if you want to make comments about a commissioner not doing something, please do not refer to commissioners by name. Please stick to the subject in your discussion.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I will do that. So if we go back to 2002, when the fresh new mayor came in, and that mayor basically threw out an agreement that the previous mayor, the previous city council, the previous park board had worked on to fund net debt bonds for capital improvements. So that created this gap, and that's a story that we've told a million times. And not only did that happen, but shortly thereafter, in the midst of belt tightening that the city was doing, the mayor, in his budget that he brought forward, forced a 5% tax reduction down our throats. We didn't go to the Board of Estimate Taxation and say, this year we'd like to reduce our levy by 5%. We didn't do that. We knew it was going to hurt us. It hurt us bad. But the mayor and the city council had the votes, and that's what they did. They said, that's what you're going to get. And I think the following year they gave us a 0% increase. So it was a big bonus that we didn't get cut again. So to hear that statements being made that, well, this board doesn't set the levy high enough, this board doesn't set the levy. This board can ask, we know what we need, but the reality is the recommendation comes first, and there's kind of some parameters that we're going to have to work around because we don't control what we get to levy. So when things get thrown out and it seems like the board just doesn't want to go for levy increases, that's ridiculous. I have voted for every levy increase that this board has ever asked for in the 14 years that I've been here, and I'm proud of it. And you know what? I don't have a problem raising taxes to provide services and to fix buildings, because that's what people have sent me here to do. There's other commissioners that don't support levy increases, and then statements are made about, well, we don't get enough of a levy increase, but they didn't support the levy increase before. Was it because it wasn't enough, or they just didn't want to raise taxes? That's a question that commissioner's constituents will have to analyze.
Mr. Vreeland.
Yes, Superintendent. So I think, again, I think this is really stellar work, but in the story that we tell about this, I don't want to overpromise or underdeliver. And as a large as increase as this is, this doesn't get us to the Cadillac system everywhere. This is really getting us back where our buildings are functional and are being scheduled for scheduled maintenance, repair, and replacement. So this isn't the new shiny things. I mean, we're trying to do planning so that we make the system work for everybody, and there will be some new investments in new places, just as we do in our capital improvement plan now. But there will be some pain and priorities and challenges, and I just think we have to be upfront about this. This will help us keep many commitments, but not answer every promise. So I don't know how we weave that into the dialogue, but this, as much as we need this, we can't overpromise.
Absolutely agree, Commissioner Vreeland, and I think that when I come in April with more specificity on the rehab and the investment piece, you will see that. And you will see that there are tough choices we have to make about where we even start, because we can't do it all, and it's about getting things so that they are functional. It's not about, yes, we will have some shiny toys, but those shiny toys will be about functionality and not about some Taj Mahal.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bourne.
Thank you, President Walensky. I agree, fantastic work from staff and from Mr. Andrew and from the members of the community that have helped us do our research and show our support for funding parks and giving us the support that we need to do what we need to do to get the funding that we need to take care of our parks. And the 3rd District Commissioner is correct. This conversation probably couldn't have happened 10 years ago, and because we couldn't quantify what it is that we need on an annual basis. And it couldn't have been done on an annual basis. We've done an incredible amount of work, and today it could be done on an annual basis. And we have the referendum is a fantastic second step. But if we haven't done our first step yet, we're just doing a lot of grandstanding. We've never requested an amount close to what we need. To the 5th District Commissioner's concerns about my previous votes on the budget in our time, I've voted against our last year's budget, as I've made it very clear, because it focuses cuts disproportionately in some of the most at-need neighborhoods in the portion of the city that I represent. From the comments that I've heard from the commissioners from the 3rd and 2nd District, it's clear to me that this is how this conversation is going to proceed over the next year. And it's really symptomatic of the bullying nature of the Minneapolis Park Board at times, that if somebody wants to ask and
all right,
point of order.
Don't turn your lights on. This lane of questioning is done. No lights on, please.
Madam Chair, this is
Madam
ridiculous.
Chair, I have the floor. Madam Chair, I have the floor.
Stop
Madam
talking.
Chair, I have the floor.
No, you don't.
Stop talking.
No, you don't.
Stop talking.
Madam Chair, I have the floor.
No, you don't. Your time is done. You don't have the floor.
Chair, I have the floor for a second time.
You already put a point of order not to name anybody by names by calling it Commissioner District 2 and Commissioner District 3 is just the same. You are out of order. At this time, if you do not have something new to add, then you need to turn your light off and stop.
Thank you. I will continue.
No.
We live in a Madam Chair. This is for the second time. I would ask that the second district commissioner be removed from the. I would ask that the second district commissioner be removed from the chamber.
For the second time around. He has used up his time.
Commissioner Olson, it is at the discretion of the chair to be able to allow more discussion.
I'd like to move a 5-minute recess now. I ask you to call a vote on, I'm making a motion.
Do we have a second?
Well, at least I got everybody to shut up for a minute. Jeez.
You have 1 minute.
Thank you.
Make your point, please.
We live in a republic. We're elected to make these decisions. To do as some of us suggest and go out and ask people to do our jobs for us is an abdication of our responsibility, and to frame our conversation about would you still like to have the #1 park system in America? Don't ask me to do it, but you can vote for it. And if you vote against it, maybe we'll have the 10th best system. I just think that is disingenuous to the people of Minneapolis. And I would like to move a resolution right now that the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board requests that the Board of Estimate and Taxation to set the maximum property tax levy for the 2017 budget at an estimated amount of $59,474,092, an increase of 9.5%.
Do I have a second? Motion fails for lack of a second.
That's all I have.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to speak. The nice thing about today's technology is that we have a website that has all of our past actions listed by minutes everywhere. For the meeting since, it goes back quite a ways. The Board of Estimate and Taxation vote has happened since 2010 when I joined this board, as did some other commissioners. 2010-29 resolution, approved on a voice vote. No amendments were offered to change the amount. 2011-150 was amended by Commissioner Fine to 0%, approved by a voice vote. No abstentions. In 2012, it was 2012-245. One commissioner abstained, but did not make any amendments to change the dollar amount. 2013-269, a commissioner abstained. No, the only amendment offered was by myself. 2014-266, there was an abstention. No amendments were offered to the budget or the maximum tax levy. In 2015, it was 2015-294. Again, no motions to amend the level of the levy were made by any commissioners. And during all of these years, any commissioner, because these are full board votes, had the opportunity to make amendments if they so chose. None were offered in that respect. So for anyone to call anyone out on this is absolutely ridiculous. There's a record of what we do. People can see it on our website should they choose to go and look at it. Now, I am under the same ideas that sustainability would be lovely. It would be great. It would be wonderful. I don't think the voters of Minneapolis would allow it. These are not folks that say, we're going to give you anything in perpetuity. We have to go out all the time for school levies. In fact, we're going out again in 2016 for a school levy. I just think that Minneapolis voters like to see how their elected officials are doing, and if they're doing well, they'll continue to support them. If they aren't, they won't. I think that this will give us a chance to prove what we can do. I do understand Commissioner Olson's concerns about LGA. LGA really is in the hands of the state, and as we've seen in the past few years at the state level, they can be our friends or they can be our foes depending on their mood. That happens with all levels of government. That's why you plan accordingly and you do what you can, and I am not opposed to looking at this in the future. I think we need to keep these separate issues separate, however, at this time. I do think from having the conversations that I have had with city council members and our other elected officials that they understand the position that we're in. I also understand that last year, not in 2015, but 2014, we had a city council that had an absolute evening of unpleasantness over something they called the levy, the latte levy, where we had a divisive vote on increasing a levy just a minute point for some folks for taxes. And that was in a percentage that was much, much smaller than a 9% increase coming from the park board. I think we have to look at the political climate to see whether or not this is possible. The discussions I have had, however, with City Council that have gotten some pretty positive aspects is that if we were to bring this to a vote for the public, then they would accept what the public decides. Again, just like the legacy vote at the state, it was, is the public willing to support parks, trails, open spaces, clean water, etc.? And the public voted to do so. It's not my favorite way to go. We're trying other, we've looked at not millions, but we've looked at quite a few other efforts that other communities have done. Our staff with their McKnight grant did in-depth research on what other communities have done. What it has come down to is that for the city of Minneapolis, at this time, this is the most likely scenario to work to help save our park system into the future. And that was what I was elected to do. Keep our park system operating in good condition for future generations. So thank you everyone for your comments and for your time. At this point in time, I don't see where we're taking a vote. Did anyone have any other discussion they wanted to do on our Closing the Gap initiative?
I guess I would follow Annie's question with, is there any additional points of clarification required at this time?
I feel like I have what I need, Commissioner Musich, to move forward.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, then, we will move on to petition and communications. I will start with Commissioner Forney.
Pass.
Commissioner Musich.
I'll pass.
Commissioner Bourne.
I will pass.
Commissioner Vreeland.
Pass.
Commissioner Olson.
Pass.
Commissioner Young.
Well, I'm not going to. Two issues. One, I am still waiting for a report on some issues that citizens have raised around the bike and path trails at Lindale and Minnehaha Creek. And I know that staff is working on a response. I just wanted to bring it forward. I've actually moved the emails into P&Cs, and it'll be in the next packet. The other thing that I'm getting emails about now is the communications issue and the questions about putting down the fiber optic cable in various parts of the park system.
Actually, Commissioner Young, I can answer that question for you.
Well, please do. Thank you.
The city of Minneapolis is allowing a company to lay fiber optic cable in their right-of-way. Their right-of-way does include under the boulevard trees where they have the right-of-way. There is city right-of-way also in alleys behind houses. What we, the park board, have said is we do not wish you to go through our right-of-way. You may go through city right-of-way, and if our right-of-way happens to be the boulevard, then you should use the alley. The fact that those companies do not want to pay the additional fees that it would cost in order to go down the alleys is not exactly a concern of mine. However, if this board would like to take it up in the future, we can. I do believe, though, if the city has given them the permission to do this, they should be doing it on city property.
Thank you, President Walensky. I think the point of me bringing this forward, though, is the same as the Minnehaha Creek, and that is either it's been solved or not solved, or yes, there's reasons for this and that. The fact is I like to answer my constituents, and so I hate to put this on you, but if you can
I will
make
be
your
happy
comments,
to. I will happy to write
if
that
you,
down and send
write
it to you.
down so that we can forward it to people that ask us these questions, it would really be helpful. I mean, that's, for me, the best way I feel I can communicate with my constituents when they ask me a question. So, on that note, I'm done.
Thank you. I'd just like to...
I am not done.
Never mind.
I'm sorry. Many of you know that I moved last year, and I now have an upper apartment that I can look at the river and downtown. And I just wanted to comment on the New Year's Eve fireworks and how fabulous they were. It's really nice to sit up there and be able to see our actions. They were really nice fireworks. So thank you again, Park Board.
Those were not ours.
And I know it's not us, but it's our parks, our river, our city. And
Yes,
it
they
was
would probably
really
have been
nice.
shooting them off in our parks. All right.
Thank you.
I just have one thing. I would like to say thank you to staff and the superintendent for going out of their way. With the unseasonably warm weather we have had, I do realize that our rinks have been behind schedule. And I would like to thank them for finding open hours at both Parade Ice and Northeast Ice Arena for kids to go open skating during the holidays when they were out of school, with us not having any outdoor rinks. I can't say what those numbers were. I haven't gotten a report from staff. I didn't ask for one, so I'm not surprised. But I do thank our staff for being flexible and finding that, because this Mother Nature has not been friends to those who participate in winter sports this year. I gather she's coming in with a big bang on Sunday, however. So thank you so much, staff, for that. Thank you for a great 2015 to all of our staff. I'm excited to lead again in 2016, so thank you to my colleagues for electing me president again. At this time, I'd entertain, there was one more thing I wanted to say. I looked at our 2015 planning project list. I would love to thank the planning for staff for adding the pending CIP projects, so we know what's out there that hasn't quite gotten to yet, but that we have every intention of doing so. And that way it makes it much easier for citizens to see where the projects are at. So thank you, planning staff, for that. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. And since Commissioner Tabb is not here, Commissioner Vreeland, you are the Vice Chair of Admin and Finance. Would you please continue?
Yes, if the secretary would please read the roll.
Commissioner Young.
Here.
Commissioner Olsen. Here. Commissioner Musich.
Here.
Chair Pro Tem.
I am here as well.
You-
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So,
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of Wednesday, December 16th?
so moved.
So moved.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Will someone move action item 4.1?
I can move action item 4.1. Do I read the whole thing, right?
Sure.
2016-103, a resolution approving encroachment permit for 1832 Kenwood Parkway for front steps and landscaping on Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board property to access a public sidewalk on Kenwood Parkway.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Is there a motion for 4.2?
I'd like to move item 4.2, number 2016-104, a resolution approving a 4-year contract with the City of St. Paul Fire Department for fire protection services to be performed at Fort Snelling properties owned or operated by the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board.
Is there any further discussion?
Actually, yes.
President Walensky.
Thank you, Chair Pro Tem Vreeland. I'm not on this committee, but I did have a question, and I don't know who on our staff would be able to answer this.
I believe it would be Renee to start with.
Or our
both.
Chief Ohio.
Tag team.
Whoever. I see that we are now going to have fire support from the City of St. Paul, which is great, because I would not like the Wells Tennis Center to burn to the ground. However, our athletic facilities that we have out there, golf course, tennis center, baseball fields, soccer fields, who shows up when somebody sprains their ankle and we need the EMTs?
The area of Fort Snelling is challenging with governance because it's an unincorporated area of Hennepin County. What has happened over the last several months is that we have worked to sort some of this out. There's an agreement across the state of Minnesota that divides the city up into EMS sectors, and so that is clear. Alina EMS is the responding ambulance for all of Fort Snelling. The policing authority sort of depends where you're at and on what property. The Hennepin County Sheriff's Office has primary jurisdiction over unincorporated areas within the county. However, the land that we're responsible for, Park Police are notified, transit property, Metro Transit Police, state property, the Minnesota State Patrol, airport property, the Airport Police. So the fire agreement has to do with the fact that the zip code for Fort Snelling is actually in St. Paul. And that's how initially that was determined, and that's why the St. Paul Fire Department has been the fire response there for quite some time. This is formalizing an agreement that we've had in place for a number of years. Minneapolis Fire is not interested in providing fire service at Fort Snelling. St. Paul is willing to provide that service.
Thank you. So if I go out there and run around the bases and sprain my ankle, the sheriff's office is going to respond with an ambulance coming from, it sounds like Alina.
Alina ambulances are already deployed in that area, and so, you know, if you were involved in a car crash on Highway 55, for example,
now you jinx me again, Jason. Please. Please don't talk about car crashes.
The ambulance service is a function of geography. That geography is manageable, and the ambulance would respond in a timely way. The 911 call would be routed based on where within Fort Snelling you say you are. You may, if you're at the old historic fort, you would get the sheriff's office. If you are at Neiman, for example, you would get the Park Police, and you might get the sheriff's office in addition.
My question is it an ambulance that's not EMTs? So if I'm having a heart attack, an ambulance is going to show up, or are EMTs from somewhere going to show up? This is a concern for me. I'm getting old and out of shape. Heart attacks are a likely
No, the
thing.
ambulance service is staffed by licensed paramedics.
Okay. So
Advanced life support.
I just want to make sure that if anybody's out there on a weekend warrior thing and they're out of
Get
shape
great
like me and
medical
they
care.
get hurt, there'll be somebody coming. All right. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We are adjourned.